have to, get out doing things.
So how's Troy doing?
He's really doing a lot better,
I'll do something once.
Oh, yeah.
Well, good.
in spite of the fact that they don't have him on any medication yet.
So,
Really?
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Great-great-grandpa.
yeah.
I used to love the bottle of summer.
Hey, Loring,
Yeah,
tell Beth I sent that thank you note that she asked me to send.
hey Beth, he sent that thank you note. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue.
Good morning, everyone.
David Allen,
Yeah.
loved it.
Yep, Dale's that way. He's just exactly like Steve.
Then I was over there, what was I doing? Oh, getting some straw. Didn't even know who it was.
Yeah. He's a clone of Gary.
He's a horse.
He is, he's a big boy. They're both big boys. Yeah, but, yeah.
So what are you drinking, Loring?
It's as much like-
Tea.
Tea. Any special kind?
Twinings, it's black tea. Sometimes I mix the green tea with it because all the journals say green tea is better for you.
Okay.
But black tea has more umph, i.e. caffeine.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
They won't let me drink green tea. Won't let me drink green tea or eat cake.
Are you blood thinners? Yeah, that's why.
John looks so,
Oh, there's Betty there too. She mysteriously appeared.
Yes. I just flew over here.
John gets the best dressed award for West Newton.
Yes, he always does. One day we're all gonna have to wear ties to meeting for worship, just to. For the
Well, you-
intro, for the intro part, then we can take them off and be comfortable.
We used to have hat day and t-shirt day at church once in a while.
Oh,
Where hat day, everybody could wear any kind of crazy hat they wanted, and t-shirt day, you could wear a t-shirt with a saying on it. It actually wasn't very often.
we had Wild West days one summer at our church. And Dad started growing a beard to look like a miner, and Mother hated it. But he actually looked good, yeah, with the beard. So, but I liked it because we got to wear blue jeans and
Yeah.
yeah, more. I had a pair of boots, I got to wear them. As opposed to my usual little bow tie. And Mother always made us dress a certain way.
How's your alma mater doing?
Well, it depends on the day. We survived board meetings. It's struggling like right now. COVID really threw us for a loop on enrollment stuff. So,
Oh,
so the deficit went way up this year because of what the impact of COVID and lower enrollment. So we are making plans not to cut anything, but to bring in somebody who can help us figure out how to generate some new revenue streams, because they don't have anything in the summers on campus. You know, it's like, what a waste of space. And
They used to have the Bengals practice there.
yeah, the Bengals practiced there for years. But, you know, they don't have sports camps or summer classes. They're heating and cooling all those buildings just sitting empty.
Oh, wow.
And with the strong ag program and physical therapy and training programs, we thought there'd be all kinds of opportunities for summer camps that would be of interest. To help bring in
Another, Quaker colleges frequently go through a soul searching on whether to try to find trustees with deep pockets or just
Yeah.
regular people. Because many colleges have trustees that contribute heavily to the college, and then there's a few that do not.
Yeah, most of ours contribute, everybody contributes, and there are some deep pockets on there. But I certainly am not one of them.
This is changing the subject, but I got a text from Sylvia saying that they are at Morias, which is in our same time zone, but they're gonna go to church with her today. So they
Okay.
won't be online.
Okay.
So there's nothing wrong, they're just not gonna be here.
I think all the universities are going to have to search because of that. I really expect with Daniel's retiring from Purdue in January, that Purdue will now raise their tuition. Because they haven't raised their tuition, I don't know how many years. Well, since he's been there. So I think a lot of the colleges are going to have to come up with some new ways because of COVID.
But if you go to Purdue's graduation, you see a huge number of Asian students graduating.
Yes, they do have a lot of foreign students.
Yeah, we used to have a big foreign student population, and those folks all pay full freight. Generally, their countries. So we're trying to reestablish, the connections, and we have people that on our board who are not. They live in the U.S. now, but they have connections with their home country, so they're working with some schools to see if we can reestablish connections and do some. Now with Zoom, do some live streaming classes to the high schools to get the kids interested in coming to Wilmington. But when I was there was a whole contingent of Arab students from Iran before the Ayatollah, and Iran paid their tuition. So it was, they opposed to the other students who 90% of them get financial aid to go there. So the ag department enrollment is up 77% this year coming in. It's our fastest growing major.
So they learn how to do organic farming?
That's one of the new partnerships they have with another group in Ohio that's up in Yellow Springs that does all organic farming, and so they're doing certificates in that as part of it, that the ag students can do that. And
Is
then
Antioch,
is Antioch?
has Antioch reopened?
Well, yes and no. There is an Antioch University, but it's not the old Antioch College. And the little Antioch College is trying to reopen. But it's very small. I mean, less than 400.
What's the difference between Antioch College and Antioch University?
The university bought some naming rights from Antioch College when they were starting to go under. And so they're more online and not as hippie-ish, shall I say. So a little more mainstream, so they've attracted more students. And that group is actually aligning with Otterbein University in Ohio to have joint programs that students can transfer back and forth. So we're looking at transfer agreements with junior colleges so that when somebody graduates, say from Southern State College, they can get their 2-year degree there and move straight to Wilmington as a junior and finish in 2 more years. which there aren't many four-year schools that do that. There aren't enough, so kids have to end up doing another almost 3 years sometimes after doing two. Which that will increase our pipeline of potential students by thousands. Lots of challenges in higher ed for everybody these days.
Yeah, the difference between $2,100 a year and $50,000 a year is quite a bit.
Yeah. Fortunately, ours isn't 50,000. There's Jonathan. Hey. Good to see you, Jonathan.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Are you safe and dry?
I am. Thank you. The flooding was mercifully, I guess for me, east of us, but definitely very impacting for a lot of folks I work with and know, unfortunately.
So what is it you do, Jonathan?
I'm a licensed clinical social worker
Oh,
with the VA, actually.
oh, with the VA?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
You're going to have plenty of business the next few years.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Important work. So are you a native Kentuckian?
I am. Yep.
Anybody else got a question for Jonathan? We can find out all about him today. Where'd you go to school?
I got my master's at UK and I did my undergraduate work at Eastern Kentucky University.
Eastern Kentucky.
Is Eastern Kentucky University being flooded?
No, it's a little farther, I guess, west and northish from where the flooding would have been most impacting, to my knowledge. It's about 45 minutes-ish south of Lexington.
Well, we're glad you're high and dry.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been very impacting for several folks. I know there are several areas in the eastern part of the state that tend toward flooding. There's a small town called Pineville, and they have a flood wall around it. It's so prone to flooding. But I think evidently this was so much water so quickly, it really kind of subsumed a lot of the protections that some of the areas kind of had in place.
It looks awful on the news.
Uh-huh.
How close is that, Jonathan, to the other disaster? The tornado about a year ago or something?
Other end of the state, actually. The eastern part is what seemed to have received the worst of the flooding, and it was the western part that had the tornadoes. Yeah, so it's definitely been a rough situation here for a while. And I live in the southeastern portion, so there's maybe a county or two, three between me and the flooding. And then we don't tend to be tornado prone here necessarily. We've had a few. About 20 years ago, we had a pretty severe one that came through. But yeah, the more western portion of the state.
The tobacco farmers up putting part of their land into growing grapes now down there?
Some of that, maybe. I've also heard a lot of, there have been a few who I think have transitioned over maybe to hemp. I think that's a thing here. I know in some counties west of me, there have been some folks who've done that because tobacco is pretty, you'll still see the occasional farm, with tobacco, but for the most part, it does seem to have pretty much gone out.
Well, these times to visit are always good. I think it's time to, I don't know who's doing music today. Norma is. So Norma has a prelude for us. Well, for announcements, we will have Sunday school this morning. We're going to look at the Queen of Sheba. Well, we'll talk about her. I don't know that we'll look at her. Although there are plenty of paintings about the Queen of Sheba. Are there other announcements that anybody knows?
School starts tomorrow.
School starts tomorrow in Decatur Township. Oh, Nancy's doing the Decatur cheer. If I hear that one more time, it'll be one too many.
The supper,
I'm sorry?
the supper at Western Yearly Meeting was very successful last Saturday night. They brought the picnic inside, and that was a good decision. Everybody had a good time and plenty to eat. And it was nice to see a room absolutely filled with friends.
Well, are there joys or concerns to share?
Well, my great niece Maggie is out of the hospital. She left the hospital on Friday for the first time in 37 days. She has a little bit of a break. She doesn't have to go back until August the 7th, and then she'll start the chemo and the whole bit over again. But she was pretty ecstatic about getting out of the hospital finally, as were her parents, of course, who've been taking turns staying with her. But your prayers will continue needed for her healing.
Well, as we center in for a little while, let us remember Maggie and others who are standing in the need of prayer, including folks in Kentucky and West Virginia and affected by the floods, St. Louis earlier this week. Of course, let's remember the Quakers of Ukraine and other Ukrainians. We don't hear as much about that, but of course we know it's still going on. I think what it's like to live in a war-torn country and hold a testimony of peace in it, which that small group of friends is trying to do in the capital of Kyiv. Well, Chip is the worship leader this morning, so after some silence, as he feels led, he'll speak out of the silence. So please put yourselves on mute if you can, just for feedback things, and then we'll unmute yourself as you feel led to speak out of the silence.
Well, my message today comes greatly edited and toned down, thanks to Troy. He came down last night and I read him my message and he goes, "You're too angry. Can't you give a nicer version?" I said, "This is the toned down version." And he cut about 2 pages of it. So I hope I don't offend anybody. It's not my usual funny message. And this month has just kind of got me. Proverbs 15:27 says, "The greedy bring ruin to their households." I watch too much news. It drives me crazy at times and drives my family crazy as well. So when I got an email from a friend that asked me why God could let this happen, I was at a loss of just what to reply. I had no idea what this was, but was sure God had nothing to do with it or to allow this to happen. Just what was going on that made my friend upset? What could it be? Of course, there was the war going on in Ukraine, but that seems to no longer be big news story. People are still waiting to enter the United States for a better life, waiting in awful conditions. But that isn't on the news anymore at all. Inflation seems to be the big thing that have politicians pointing fingers at one another. Then there is monkeypox, and that seems to be out of control. Women's rights are being taken away. Police officers overacting or not acting at all. And of course, there's climate change. I tried to think how God would be responsible for any of these things. Okay, so the war in Ukraine, what is that about? It all boils down to a very greedy ruler of Russia wanting to recreate the USSR. It does not matter who he kills in the process, and that includes his own Russian soldiers. Every day, innocent men, women, and children are killed. Every day. And yet, it is not talked about that much on the news. The war has been going on for quite a while, and people have lost interest in hearing about it. This war has to do with greed and not God. So that must not be what my friend was talking about. And then there are deplorable conditions Mexicans and other people of color are waiting at the wall to cross the border and make a decent living in the United States, doing work that most white citizens don't want to do. So the government doesn't want people to come here and work. And yet every day you see signs now hiring and asking people to work for their companies. I don't understand the concept, but has nothing to do with God letting it happen. Think about it. A nation that calls itself Christian and totally turns its back on Jesus's teaching. I don't get it. But again, this wasn't brought about by God. Inflation. Yes, that is big with politicians these days, and it is a big problem for most of us. Although I'm not sure, but I bet most politicians don't put back food on the shelves because they don't have enough money to pay for it, or worry that they're not going to have enough money to fill their car up to get to work. Now here's the kicker. The producer can sell his product for what he wants in order to make a big profit. And if supply is low, the price is raised. The company that moves this product can pass along the high gas prices to the company that receives the product. And in turn, that extra cost is passed on to you. So the producer makes big bucks, the shipper makes big bucks, and the seller makes a nice profit. It's all about greed, and the consumer pays the price. Thus is inflation. Not brought about by God, but brought to you by those who choose profit over people. I remember my family talking about hard times during World War II, but the people worked together to get by. They helped one another with things like carpooling, sharing extra food, growing their own vegetables in their victory gardens, and checking on each other. What happened? What changed us? And then there is monkeypox. Where did that come from? I remember hearing there were 3 cases in the US, and the next thing it was an epidemic. Unlike AIDS in the early days, there is a vaccine for monkeypox now. It's just getting the vaccine made and sent out. God, once again, did not let this happen. Next on the list are all the shootings. Every day I hear on the news, someone has shot or were killed in Indy, where I live. Every day someone is shot dead. And yet, I guess anyone now can carry a gun around and it's quite legal. Now, what could possibly go wrong? And then there are the mass shootings in schools, grocery stores, parades, and football games, to mention a few. Now, these folks carry big guns that can shoot off large amounts of bullets for killing large amounts of people, men, women, and children. The shooter wants to kill as many people as he can. People, in most cases, they do not know. I was sure that after the shooting at Sandy Hook, there would be a ban on these kinds of weapons, and we would never see again slaughter of innocent school children. But I was wrong. God didn't let it happen either. I have been so upset with all the shootings and the finger pointings and people crying about the Second Amendment rights, while many of the same people are taking away the rights of their own constituents. I am upset with the fact the states are so divided. They can move quickly to take away rights and yet have to think about what they need to do when a bunch of children are slaughtered. They are quick to offer thoughts and prayers, but have no solutions for mass murder. Those in charge of making laws are quick to call an emergency session to tell women what they can do or can't do with their bodies because of the religious belief of judges. What happened to separation of church and state? And yes, I have seen this movie. It's called A Handmaid's Tale. You might want to check it out. I have great respect for the police. I would not want to do their jobs. I have been harassed by a few, but most have come to my help in my time of need. And it is nice to know that I can call 911 and they will be here. I didn't realize until Black Lives Matter movement how worried parents of Black children were every time they took a car out for the evening, and then you see it on the news. Unbelievable. There are lots of stories I could share, but I will do just one. A Black man was running from the police. They thought he had a gun, and when he ran from his car, he was shot by several police officers 23 times. By the way, he didn't have a gun on him. On the other hand, when the shooter was headed for that grade school in Texas, shooting his gun, the officer felt he needed permission to shoot him. And then after the guy was inside shooting, an officer was heard saying, "Please put down the gun." While the other officers hearing children screaming hid, well, except for one who sanitized his hands. That is not right, but God didn't let it happen. Now this brings us to climate change. I became aware of global warming in the 70s. I went to several rallies. I was good at that back then, and even started my office on a recycling program. A lot of people and a whole lot of politicians just thought global warming was something made up by the liberals. Global warming started in the mid-1800s, and then about 30 years ago, it became known as climate change. Too many people that could have joined together and done something chose not to. Others still believe it isn't happening. So what have we got now? You know, when you were little, you think about how long it's going to be when you can have friends come over for a sleepover. Then you're excited about when you can drive. You're excited about turning 21 and going out for the evening. And all this time you hear people saying, time sure goes fast the older you get. And really, we don't understand it. And then it's here, and you wonder just where did the time go? Well, 30 years ago, scientists predicted that what is happening today would happen if we didn't take climate change seriously. The polar caps would melt, low-lying areas would flood, there would be major droughts, there would be shortages of food, water would go into short supply, and on and on and on. Oh yes, I did see that movie. It doesn't end well. It was made in 2004. It was called Day After Tomorrow. This movie shows just how extreme the weather can get if nothing is done to protect our environment. There were big tornadoes, extreme winters, long hot summers with fires and floods like we never had seen before. I was going to tell you to watch this movie, but don't bother with the movie. Just go to the Weather Channel and you can see this all happening alive. The droughts have been awful. Forests are dying out and burning, destroying homes for the animal as well as people who live near them. You either have no rain or more rain than you've ever seen before. Just this past week, St. Louis was underwater, as well as some towns in Kentucky. Flooding like they have never seen before, and more rain is on the way. Winters are extreme. Some places have so much snow and ice the cities are froze up, while other places see almost no snow at all. The future that the science predicts is now here. Think about this. This summer may be the coolest summer you will ever see for the rest of your life. It is my belief that God did not allow any of these things to happen, but perhaps he is waiting for us to do something. After all, he does help those who help themselves. In closing, I would like to mention my favorite anti-war film, On the Beach, made in 1959. In the movie, the last of humanity all died, either by radiation poisoning or by suicide pills issued by the government. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper. As we go into our quiet time, I would like for you to think about the last scene of On the Beach. The scene shows a Salvation Army banner, the message now directed at the movie audience. There is still time, brother.
Well, Chip, each of the items that you, or situations that you lifted up to us today represents an opportunity for each person, each family to step out of their comfort zone and make adjustments, adaptations, lend a helping hand, build something different and new. At least pray about what you can do to help. We sometimes, when we hear these oppressive kinds of news items, we tend to retreat instead of stepping forward. And I think it's time that we step forward to help somebody. To build a garden in our backyard or in our front yard. A garden that grows skyward instead of across the ground, perhaps. It's something for each of us to assume some responsibility for.
Thank you, Norma.
The Jews have a phrase, tikkun olam, which I never say right because I don't speak Hebrew. But it means we're invited to work with God in the healing of the world. And I like that concept. And I think we forget it sometimes where Norman said we can be overwhelmed and so retreat, but we're not asked to do everything. We're just asked to do what we're supposed to do and work with God in it. We're not doing it alone. But with, as the old Quakers used to say, with divine assistance. We'll now continue on in unprogrammed worship. I know some have to leave, so blessings on you as you do, and everyone's invited to stay for our next period if they can. So. If all hearts are clear, we will end worship this morning. Everyone's invited to Sunday school. Chip's already seen the movie about the Queen of Sheba,
I have.
so he can tell us all the Hollywood details, which are somewhat apocryphal, I believe. So have a good week. Dale, how'd your John Woolman thing go at yearly meeting, do you feel? I'm sorry to have missed it.
I think it went well.
We can't hear you.
I think it went well. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best I've done, and that only includes the time I did it at West Newton. So
It went very well.
I'm glad to see some of the rest of you because I think I came home with COVID.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I came down. I've been out of it for the last 3 or 4 days. I didn't make it to Iowa yearly meeting at all. And I don't know, obviously travel and everything, but I think I was standing and talking to Chris on Thursday night for a while. And I was masked, but he wasn't.
Well, Dale,
Anyway.
it did come across very well at yearly meeting, and you were not the only one who got COVID from that Thursday night meeting. Sean has it, Della and Carrie have it. A number of people picked it up probably from that night, but your
Well,
presentation went very well.
But I'm glad for that. I appreciated the opportunity.
We're grateful you could do that.
Yeah.
Well, take care, friends, and we hope to see you all next Sunday.